Cardinals, good morning. It's Coach Monaghan here, and we've got our next dugout chat session with a special guest that I brought in today. Let me share the screen here. And we'll tell you a little bit about our guest. This is our fourth meeting, by the way. China McCarney, California boy. Vasquez High School. He was named the California Interscholastic Federation Player of the Year in 2005. Went to college at College of the Canyons and Cal State Northridge in California. Drafted not once but twice. The Cleveland Indians in 2008 and the Tampa Bay Rays in 2009. He is a vice president of Jaeger Sports and also the founder of Athletes Against Anxiety and Depression Foundation. China, our players are very familiar with the Jaeger Band program. We've used them exclusively in our winter training program over the course of this past year. China, here is his contact information. Again, the VP of Jaeger Sports. And it's easy to find Jaeger, by the way, on social media. No matter where you go, it's Jaeger Sports, and also their website, jaegersports.com. China, good morning and welcome. It's very early where you are, a little after 8 o'clock on the West Coast.
Yeah, no, this is the best way to start the morning, except I didn't know that you were going to have all that information make me blush right off the bat. But no, I appreciate you and appreciate the players and parents joining. And this is one of the positives of the situation going on right now is the ability to connect and have the technology to be on two opposite sides of the country and just wake up and share some passion right off the get-go.
Now, you started using Jaeger products at the age of 14, if I'm not mistaken. How do you go from there to be the vice president of the company?
Yeah, it's kind of a cool story. I was actually only 12 when I started. I went to a camp when I was 12 years old and fell in love with the physical side of the program. Alan came out one of the days and told my dad, after seeing me throw once at 12 years old, that I was going to throw in the 90s, and then he saw another pitch. He's like, or even harder. And I was 12. And so we kind of developed a mentor relationship. He mentored me through high school. And probably about 16 years old is when I started excelling in the long toss in terms of distance and accuracy and stuff like that. And so I started kind of touring the country with them, doing their long toss demos. And after junior year in college, I started helping them out with the business. And then once my professional playing career was over in 2012, I came on board full time, kind of saw how the sausage was made, so to speak. And here we are 8 years later. I've been with the business for 21 years and kind of climbed up the ladder and seen the growth of the business and the teaching and the program. So 2-decade journey.
One of the things that I've seen on the Jaeger Sports YouTube pages with the long toss program is long toss, the equation between long toss and velocity. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of our kind of fun events that we did, I guess that was 2008, is our long toss video. It's only about 6.5 minute video. The long toss was not 6.5 minutes. We get that question. That took about 45 minutes to an hour. But yeah, we show the progression of distance. We went out to about 360, 380 that day and then compressed that into velocity. And if your mechanics are working for you and everything's working for you, there actually is a table, and it's online. You can Google, long toss distance versus velocity. That'll show you based on how long you can throw, or how far you can throw, I should say, distance-wise, it will translate to a certain velocity at your pitching specific distance. And the reason that's valuable, we're not huge on results here and data and concrete different things like that. But the reason that is valuable is if you have an athlete throwing 300 feet or whatever it may be, and so they should be throwing 85 off the mound or whatever it is, and they're not doing so, then we know there's a mechanical discrepancy that we can fix. Something's going on because they have the arm strength in the long toss, but it's not translating to the mound. And so we can look for mechanical things to try to help that velocity improve or whatnot.
There is obviously an emphasis on velocity, and I'm looking at some of our Cardinals players who are here, who I worked with over the winter, some of whom for their ages throw relatively hard. Is there too much of an emphasis, do you think, on how hard a player throws as opposed to the ability to locate?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think it depends on the age. And first and foremost, especially at younger ages, fundamentals, fun, and then progressing the right way with arm health first. It's arm health and then arm conditioning. If you're not healthy, you can't condition, you can't train the right way. And so I think if the number one goal is just velocity, 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 there's going to be detrimental effects to the health and then to the development of the pitcher. Um, so I think if I gave you a short answer, I think yes would be my answer. There's too much focus on velocity, especially at the younger ages. But at the same time, when you go to a showcase at 17, 18 years old, the first thing they do is they put the radar gun on you. And if you throw a certain speed, they let you go to the next phase of whatever said showcase you're at. And so it is important, but the guys that can develop, a changeup, especially, that's something we preach big time, is that's almost a lost art in the game today. If you can develop a great changeup with a good fastball and be able to locate, it's going to take care of itself over time in terms of results, getting a scholarship, whatever it is that you want to achieve. Pitching and the ability to pitch is more important than the ability to throw a flat fastball 95, because those go a lot farther over the fence than a well-located one.
You mentioned the long toss video, and there's a pull down section of it. The whole video is very fascinating to watch, and later I'll make sure our Cardinals players get a link to it in case they haven't seen it. What are your thoughts about run and guns?
Running guns are interesting. For us, we use a pitcher's crow hop where you're balanced off the back leg the entire time. Once you get out in the stretching out phase to a distance where you need to incorporate your body to back up your arm and get the ball to go that distance, we use a pitcher's crow hop the whole time. So we're not using the running guns out there. The programs that do, I'm assuming and hoping that there's research behind it. I know that it's like an athletic focus on just throwing it as hard as you can. But we're huge on the legs and the body and the balance supporting the arm. And sometimes we used to use in that video, actually, it's interesting that you bring that up. That's 12 years ago now, was using a cross step. So I would do almost a modified crow hop where it wasn't a pitcher's crow hop up and down, but it was kind of like a karaoke thing. And the reason we went away from that is because there were times where your body could get ahead of your arm. And when your body gets ahead of your arm, you can see there's more tension on the shoulder, rotator cuff. And so that would be my only worry with running guns, is if you're trying so hard that your body gets out in front of your arm, it puts more torque on the shoulder, on the rotator cuff, especially at a younger age where they're developing. We don't want to put tension on there. And so we're a firm believer in a pitcher's crow hop, keeping balance, keeping the body, keeping the legs in conjunction with the arm to support it and keep it healthy.
I'm not sure what's going on in California where you are. Here in New Jersey right now with the COVID-19 pandemic, we're still not able to get any really organized baseball activities. Outdoor batting cages just opened up, although they're few and far between where we are in this area. What are you able to do in California right now?
California is sort of up in the air as well. We are able to go outside. Public parks have just opened. There's one across from my house, and there's more people, more activity going on there. Beaches and boardwalks are open. There's no loitering is not the right word, but you can't go and tan at the beach. You can't sit at the beach, but you can do physical activity and whatnot. But for teams, there's no gatherings for more than 3 people, I still believe. And so it's still kind of on an individual basis to get your work in, get your arm care and conditioning in. And it's still very, very strict in terms of what athletes and what groups of teams and workout programs are able to do currently.
We figure with phase 2 coming, we'll probably at some point in the not too distant future at least be able to have some team workouts. And one of the concerns, a lot of our players have been doing some kind of program. They're sending us their videos on Instagram, tagging us at the North Jersey Cardinals. So we're seeing what they're doing, definitely. So we know that they're working, and we've given them some protocols that they can follow. But once we start to ramp up, how quickly do you think players should be getting up to speed?
Yeah, that's the number one question right now. That's the best question. This is probably one of the more important questions for the players to listen to, because we are all itching to play, right? We all want to compete. We all want to get back. We've lost a lot of time right now. But the most important thing when you come back is to ensure that you have a base of arm health and a foundation of arm health before competing. So for us, at this age, the younger, maybe 10 to 15 years old, it's probably 2 to 4 weeks of arm circles, J-bands, long toss before you're ready for aggressive or competitive throwing. If you're a little older, you might need more time. But Alan put out a tweet 2 days ago, or I actually texted him. I was like, dude, it hit me hard about, we're all itching. We're chomping at the bit to get back to competition because we've lost the season here. But if you come back too quickly, you could end up losing 2 seasons because you're going to experience an injury that might have been avoidable if you do that foundation and that base for the arm health. And so I would say, take 2 to 3 weeks of just focusing on building a base of arm health and arm strength before we get back to what we all love to do, which is competing, aggressive throwing, pens, and all that stuff.
You mentioned what Alan Jaeger had tweeted out just a few days ago. I've done some work in the past with Yankees team physician, Dr. Christopher Ahmad, and he posted something on a blog entry a few days ago talking about how there could actually be an increase in arm injuries when baseball comes back because of kids trying to rush things too soon. So we really can't emphasize enough the fact that you want to make sure that you're doing things on a nice progressive level here.
Right. No, absolutely. And that's one of the key takeaways for the player, because that comes down to player discipline. Coaches can put in parameters and guide them, but the player ultimately can feel what's going on in their body. They know how much they need before they're ready for competition. And so that is going to be the key and crucial, because we've already lost enough baseball with this whole situation, and we don't want to lose any more because of injuries that we could have avoided. And so that is definitely a crucial point right there.
China McCarney is our guest. He's the vice president of Jaeger Sports. And again, all our Cardinals players are, or at least should be, aware of Jaeger bands and the Jaeger program, because we've been using it through the course of our winter training programs. China is also the founder of Athletes Against Anxiety and Depression Foundation. And there's a lot of anxiety in the game of baseball. First, it's a game of failure, where you fail 7 times out of 10, a lot of times at the plate. And that's a good hitter. Right. So you deal with that a lot. And the ability, I think David Wells had a quote some years ago, you can't be afraid to fail. How, in your opinion, what is the best way for a young athlete to help work on that, develop that, so the anxiety level while they're playing goes down?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. I think it's a mental adjustment of how we look at failure. I think parents and coaches are crucial, especially in the younger development ages, of letting their players and their athletes and their kids know that failure is okay. And especially in this game, like you said, it is so prevalent. And so how do we look at it? How do we learn from it? And it's such a good metaphor for life, because there's going to be failures, adversities, and things that happen throughout your entire life. And baseball teaches you that you can handle it. You can come back up. There's next at bat, stuff like that. That's kind of like the overall motivational look at it. But in terms of like tools to use in game or competition at Jaeger Sports, our mental training, we have what's called a process. And a process is a few things that you can control every pitch so that you can compete to pitch competitions. So for a pitcher, it would be deep breath, focal point, attack. Those are 3 things that I can control, and these would change based on the individual and what their needs are. When I was pitching, I needed to concentrate on balance, so I added a little one in there. But I can take a deep breath every pitch. I can choose where my eyes are going to go. I can focus where I want, on the catcher's mask, on the hitter's left elbow, whatever it is, and then I can attack with fastball mentality. As a hitter, same thing. Deep breath, see the ball well, attack. Doesn't mean swing every time, but every pitch you're taking with attack mentality, and you swing if it's a good pitch and you're seeing it well anyway. And so those are 2 basic processes that if you get good at that, you can control that every pitch is a new competition. And so that helps you deal with the failure of baseball. That helps you deal with the anxiety, because a lot of the anxiety comes from what we can't control: umpires, errors, scouts in the stands, situation, all that stuff. And if you guys can get good at just worrying about what you can control, your instincts are going to take over, your talent is going to take over, and the game becomes a lot more fun and a lot less stressful, because the variables are pointless anyway. And so what you can concentrate on to be the best version of yourself and then for your team, and ultimately achieve the goal that you're wanting to achieve.
There's a lot of talk in youth sports about parental involvement. And one of the things that I hear a lot is that car ride home. You don't want to be that kid or that parent in that situation of that car ride home. And one of the suggestions that I've seen that I don't necessarily agree with is don't talk to your kid about the game right after the game. And the reason I say I don't necessarily agree with it, and again, this is just my perspective, I didn't coach my son all the way through his travel ball experience. I have him off and on during different seasons. But whether it was a game I coached or a game I didn't coach, he and I would always make a point of sitting down afterwards and just talking about the game. How did you feel? What were you thinking at this point? It was never that, how could this happen type of thing. But I always felt that, at least for him and me, for our relationship, that worked. He knew that I wasn't going to come down on him. What were you thinking? How could you possibly? He knew that it was a point of, let's go through this. What did you think? What did you like? What didn't you like? How do you think you could have improved? That type of thing. I don't know if every parent is able to have that relationship with their child. I do know that you just, at all costs, want to avoid that car ride home because the game is so tough to play.
Yeah, no, and it's so funny that this comes up today because yesterday I talked to my pops and my stepmom, who they're my parents there who raised me, and we were talking about that situation, and I never felt pressure to perform, and I never felt bad if I had a bad game. The only time I was scared is if I disrespected the game or did something to an umpire or something like that. Then we were going to have a discussion. But yeah, that car ride home, it gives me a physical reaction thinking about it, a visceral reaction of like, you don't want that. And as a parent, you just want to support your kid. And oftentimes it's a trial and error process like anything else. Like you learned with your son, that worked for you guys. You could talk about it and everything. And so as a parent, as much as the kid, figure out what works for you. I'm diehard competitor. And so after a loss, my dad better not have talked about the game until the next day. But you figure that out, and he would figure that out where if it was a close loss or something like that, he would just let it be. And then the next day he would know that I would bring it up and be like, yeah, it had da. But you figure out that relationship. But the bottom line is you never want your child to feel pressure to perform because that's already there and they want to do well anyway. They're not trying to not do well. That's a huge thing in coaching where coaches say throw strikes. Thanks, coach. Thanks. Didn't know. I was trying to throw ball after ball. Really appreciate that advice. And so just be supportive and just help them and kind of figure out the post-game process and what communication works best. And if there are opportunities to teach valuable lessons about the failures or about anything like that, that's the fun part of the parent-athlete relationship going through this journey. Because when I look back at my career, there's awards and the certain games you win are fun, but a lot of times it's with my pops. It's at the park with the trash can, trying to hit the trash can and staying out there even though there's lightning coming and different things like that. And so that's what you cherish as an adult looking back. And so just try to keep that in perspective as a parent or as a leader of the athlete to just make it fun and make it informative.
You mentioned the trash can drill. One of our players, I believe he's still on, Gavin Mock, will remember that. We were doing some catching drills, working on throwing, and we didn't have a partner for him. So put a garbage can and had him make those throws, trying to put the ball on a certain side of the can,
so much fun.
The second base. We mentioned that you're the founder of Athletes Against Anxiety and Depression Foundation. Can you talk about your own journey with anxiety?
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is something I've struggled with, anxiety and panic attacks, for about 12 years now. 11 years, bad math. But I had my first panic attack in 2009, which I don't think it was a coincidence. I was a junior in college. I was projected top 5 rounds. Stuff didn't go as it should have gone at the beginning of the year. I was going to transfer schools. You can just hear the snowball going right now, just speaking it out. And so I had a panic attack, which I didn't know was a panic attack. And went to the doctor. They told me it was my brain. And I was like, are you kidding me? All that physical stuff was my brain. So long story short, I hid it for 6 years. I didn't want the scouts to know, didn't want my coaches to know, because I didn't want to be perceived as weak or weak-minded. And so I hid it for 6 years. Finally, in 2015, I reached out and got help, went to therapy, and it changed my life because all it did was give me permission to be who I truly was and to realize that so many people go through so many different things with mental health, depression at times, anxiety at times, nerves, all that stuff. And so it gave me this sense of relaxation, honestly, about how many people dealt with this. And so in 2016, in November, I did a mental health movement on social media where I just shared my story. And the response was absolutely incredible. My network obviously is in athletics, and the amount of coaches and players that reached out via DM, by the way, not publicly, to just say, hey, I struggle with this. This is awesome. Don't stop doing what you're doing. And because of that response, I knew I had a responsibility to do something bigger and do it the right way. And so we got the official 501c3 approval for nonprofit foundation in March of 2017. And my goal really with that is just to create a community and create conversation to let, if somebody's struggling, if any players are struggling with something, they don't know how to deal with it, don't hide it. Just go to somebody. If your coach can't help you directly, they're going to try to get you the help that you need, and to create kind of an environment. And what I love to see is it's starting to change. The Michael Phelps, the Kevin Loves, the DeMar DeRozan, it's starting to change where more prominent figures are okay talking about it, where they look like larger than life robots, but they're just human beings struggling as well. And so I just wanted to create some sort of outlet, and we provide free therapy to anybody, not just athletes, that's struggling through the foundation. And so if you are struggling, don't struggle in silence, because 7 out of 10 people in their life deal with something. That's 70%. That's the reverse of baseball, right? We said right. 7 out of 10 failures. So yeah, but if you're struggling, there are resources for you, and there's no reason to struggle in silence, especially in such a high pressure, high anxiety sport like baseball.
And I bring that up because May is Mental Health Month, and one of the aspects that has been talked about a lot with regards to the COVID-19 pandemic is how this is affecting everyone's mental status, whether you're in sports, athletics, or not. There's no two ways about it. I mean, we've been isolated now for quite some time. I'm still able to go to my day job. It is considered essential. But my baseball stuff, China, this is the first time since I was in 8th grade, the first spring, that I'm not doing something baseball related. And I come home from work and I'm like, all right, now what do I do? So there's definitely a mental health aspect of this. In fact, a friend of mine, an artist on social media, she does a lot of sports art, was posing a question on Twitter the other day about how this is affecting people mentally. And I tweeted back to her, how much time do you have?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's not something that you can answer in 140 characters. For our players and just as importantly, our parents who are watching as well, who want information about your foundation, where's the best place for them to go?
So Google is always awesome. You can Google Athletes Against Anxiety and Depression. If you Google China McCarney, it's one of the first links, but the website is AAADF.org. It's just the acronym of the foundation. So Athletes Against Anxiety and Depression Foundation.org. There's a Tell Your Story page on there where you can share your story with mental health for yourself or someone else. There's resources on there. There's little like bullet point articles, 5 tips to deal with anxiety or panic attacks. And then you can contact me directly, which I encourage if you need anything. And then our biggest resource and why we raise funding for the foundation is for that we can provide therapy to anybody that's struggling. Anybody that comes to us, we provide them with free therapy. It's not free, but we provide it, and that's why we fundraise. And so that's where you can find us. And like you said in the beginning, my social media, China McCarney, I'm all public profiles, so you can contact me on there, follow me. I share a lot of mental health stuff, a lot of fun baseball stuff, and anything you need. I know when I was struggling in silence for those 6 years, having that outlet and that resource is huge. So don't ever hesitate to reach out if you need anything or just want to share a fun story.
I can't thank you enough for coming on with us today. This has been very enlightening again for both our parents and our players. And if any of you parents or players want more information on this, and all of the information went too fast, either through the slide that I showed or what China was just saying, you can reach out to me. My baseball email address is baseballworkoutzone@gmail.com. Again, if you may have another email address for me, that's my personal address, but my baseball stuff is baseballworkoutzone workoutzone@gmail.com. Next week, we're going to be talking with Ty Blankmeyer. Ty is the son of Ed Blankmeyer, who was the longtime head coach at St. John's University in Queens. And Ed, well, he was supposed to be managing the Brooklyn Cyclones in the New York Penn League for the New York Mets this year, but we all know how that turned out. Ty is also a scout with the Milwaukee Brewers. So we'll have Ty on next week. China McCarney, again, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you joining us this morning.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. Like I said at the beginning, this is one of the positives of something like this, is the time to do stuff like this, and to see the Cardinals players in those sweet hats and some creative backgrounds. This is just, it's been fun. And now we can all get back to Fortnite or whatever it is, right?